Beloved child, listen carefully to the whisper of heaven, for Jesus speaks directly into the chambers of your heart, revealing what you have not fully acknowledged about your own strength, about the resilience that has carried you through storms that seemed insurmountable, about the battles that left scars not as signs of defeat, but as testimonies of survival. For the very things that tried to break you, that were designed by the enemy to shatter your spirit, have instead become instruments of your awakening. And while you may have questioned your endurance, doubted your ability to rise again, and wondered if the pain would ever end, the truth is that you have already walked through fire and emerged with a soul unbroken, with faith fortified, with a heart that beats in rhythm with divine purpose. And the Lord reminds you that every challenge, every betrayal, every loss, every sleepless night, every tear you cried in secret, every moment where you felt utterly alone, was part of a divine refining, a process that was orchestrated not to harm you but to prepare you for the fullness of blessing that awaits. For there is a purpose in every wound, a lesson in every trial, a victory hidden within every difficulty. And now, as you stand in the present, you may notice the echoes of those trials lingering. The memories that once haunted you returning to test whether you truly recognize the power you have gained through endurance. And Jesus whispers now to affirm that you have indeed survived, not by your own strength alone, but by the sustaining power of the Spirit that has walked beside you every step of the way, guiding you, protecting you, and turning what the enemy intended for harm into fuel for your ultimate triumph. There may have been moments when you felt small, weak, unworthy, or incapable, when the weight of circumstances seemed too heavy to bear, when the voices of doubt, fear, and condemnation pressed in from every side, yet in each instance you persisted, even when persistence felt like sheer willpower alone, even when hope seemed distant, even when you felt like giving up entirely, and all along, heaven was observing, recording, and preparing for this very moment where the Lord can reveal that your survival was never accidental, that your endurance was never in vain, that every tear and every struggle has carved within you a resilience that cannot be shaken, a fortitude that cannot be diminished, and a faith that cannot be extinguished. You may not yet see the full scope of what you have endured, for the battles that seemed devastating at the time were actually strategic interventions of divine protection, shielding you from greater harm, redirecting you from paths that would have led to destruction, and equipping you with lessons, discernment, and strength that are now integral to the season you are entering, because God does not allow destruction without purpose, and He does not leave His children unprepared. And as you reflect on your journey, you will notice how many times the Lord's unseen hand redirected situations, softened blows, and turned potential disasters into moments of growth, insight, and revelation. And though you may have felt abandoned, alone, or forgotten, the truth is that every trial you survived was a testimony being written into your soul, a story that will one day inspire others, and a foundation upon which your future victories are being built. Child, consider the storms you have faced, the betrayals you have endured, the losses that cut deeply, the fears that loomed, and the adversities that threatened to consume you, and now hear this clearly: you have survived all of it, and more than survival, you have emerged stronger, wiser, and closer to the destiny God has ordained for you. And Jesus whispers now to remind you that what was meant to destroy you has already been defeated in the spiritual realm, that the enemy's schemes cannot prevail, and that your endurance is evidence of divine protection, divine favor, and divine purpose. And as you continue forward, remember that the very circumstances that once terrified you now serve as proof that you are equipped for what lies ahead, that your spirit is seasoned, that your heart is resilient, and that your life is being prepared for a level of blessing, influence, and testimony that could not have been possible without having walked through the fires, the trials, and the challenges that were meant to shape you into the warrior, the vessel, and the overcomer you are today. And in this moment, as you reflect on all that you have endured and all that you have survived, let your spirit rise in recognition, gratitude, and faith, knowing that nothing that has come against you has succeeded, and that Jesus Himself is standing with you, whispering the truth of your victory, and that the best is yet to come. Child of God, now hear with clarity, because the truth that Jesus is revealing goes far beyond mere survival. It pierces the core of every fear, every doubt, and every memory that the enemy has tried to use to convince you that you were powerless, that you were broken, that you were destined to remain trapped under the weight of circumstances, because the reality is far greater than the struggles you have endured. And heaven wants you to recognize that those moments of pain, confusion, betrayal, and loss were never indicators of failure. They were the very instruments that forged your endurance, the crucible in which your faith was purified, the mechanism by which your spirit was being trained to operate at a higher level of divine authority and spiritual awareness. For the battles you survived were designed not only to test your resilience but to expand your capacity for revelation, to stretch your heart to love beyond limitation, to sharpen your discernment so that you can perceive the unseen, and to fortify your mind so that when the storms of life return, as they inevitably will, you will not waver, you will not fall, and you will not be shaken, because the Spirit of God has been embedding within you a strength that cannot be stolen, a courage that cannot be quenched, and a peace that surpasses all understanding. Consider, beloved, the moments when the weight of betrayal seemed unbearable, when the loss of trust cut like a knife, when rejection threatened to convince you that your life was devoid of purpose or meaning, and yet here you are, still breathing, still standing, still capable of hope, still able to believe in the promises of God, and that very endurance is a declaration to the spiritual realm that the enemy's plans are futile, that his attempts to destroy you have failed, and that the divine design for your life cannot be derailed by circumstances, by people, or by fear, because survival, child, is not accidental, it is intentional, it is ordained, it is a direct result of the love, protection, and guidance of the Creator Himself, and the fact that you have walked through these trials is a testament to His faithfulness, His strategy, and His unseen intervention in your journey, reminding you that every tear shed, every sleepless night, every moment of questioning, every hour of loneliness, every time you felt small or insignificant, was in reality a step toward the revelation of your strength, toward the awakening of your purpose, and toward the fulfillment of the destiny that heaven has been preparing exclusively for you. Now, as you stand at this threshold, feeling perhaps the residual fear, the quiet whispers of doubt, or the heavy pull of past trauma, Jesus is whispering even more intimately. That fear, that pain, that shadow that once had dominion over your soul is now powerless, it no longer has authority, it no longer defines you. And the lessons you have learned through surviving it have equipped you with a wisdom and a fortitude that surpass the comprehension of those who have never endured what you have endured. And as you begin to perceive this truth in your spirit, you will notice that even the very memories that once brought grief are now transformed into markers of victory, monuments of endurance, and proof of your unshakable identity in Christ. The enemy may attempt to remind you of the struggles, the people who hurt you, the doors that closed, the opportunities that were denied, the friendships that were broken, and the dreams that seemed postponed indefinitely. But do not be deceived, for every one of these reminders is being intercepted by heaven and used as a spotlight to illuminate the power of your survival, to show you how strong, how faithful, how equipped you truly are, and to remind you that the obstacles you overcame were never permanent prisons, they were only temporary tests, designed to elevate you into a season of supernatural favor, divine alignment, and blessings that could not be accessed without passing through the very trials that sought to crush you. And child, understand this, your survival is a blueprint for your testimony, a living proof that the schemes of the enemy cannot withstand the hand of God, and that even when your spirit felt broken, when your mind was exhausted, when your heart was heavy with despair, the Lord was orchestrating every detail to ensure that your endurance would not be in vain, that your faith would be refined, and that your journey would become a beacon of hope for others, a light shining through the darkness, and a living example that what was meant to destroy you has already been defeated, because you have survived, you have endured, you have overcome, and the very act of walking forward now, with confidence, courage, and clarity, activates blessings, doors, opportunities, and favor that were prepared to meet you only after you had proven your strength, and even if the world does not yet recognize the depth of your victory. Heaven celebrates, angels rejoice, and your spirit knows the truth, you are unbreakable, you are equipped, and you are destined for greatness beyond what the eye can see or the mind can imagine, because every storm, every attack, every shadow that tried to consume you has already been turned into fuel for your next season, and in this very moment, Jesus whispers again with power, assurance, and intimacy, reminding you that surviving what was meant to destroy you is not just proof of endurance. It is a declaration of victory, a preparation for promotion, and a foretaste of the abundant life, purpose, and influence that await you, and that as you embrace this truth fully, you will step forward into a reality that confirms what your spirit has always known. Nothing that sought to harm you can stand against the God who has already written your victory, and your life, now anchored in this revelation, will be a testament that survival is sacred, strength is eternal, and divine purpose is unstoppable. Beloved child, now is the time to understand with complete clarity that the trials you have endured, the betrayals you have suffered, the losses that seemed unbearable, and the moments where despair whispered lies in your ear were never random, never meaningless, and never indications that you lacked favor or strength, because every experience that felt like it might break you was in fact a spiritual workshop, a divine classroom, a training ground designed by heaven to equip you with the discernment, resilience, and spiritual authority that you now possess. And as you reflect on the memories that once haunted you, the arguments that cut too deep, the trust that was shattered, the doors that closed just as hope seemed within reach, you will realize that those very moments were the instruments by which your soul was strengthened, your faith refined, and your spiritual perception heightened. Because God is always intentional in His work, always strategic in His plans, and always faithful to ensure that no pain is wasted, no tear is unaccounted for, and no setback ever eclipses the purpose He has ordained for your life. Consider, child, how many times you were tempted to give up, how many nights you wrestled with despair, how many days you felt alone, abandoned, or unseen, yet through it all, your heart continued to beat, your mind continued to hope, and your spirit, even when weary, continued to rise in quiet obedience to the Spirit of God, and that, beloved, is the evidence that survival is not accidental but divinely orchestrated. For every moment that you persisted, every time you resisted despair, every time you chose faith over fear, you were writing a testimony that would not only reveal your strength to the world but also testify to the faithfulness of God, because the one who sees in secret has been preparing a revelation that will now come to the surface, showing that what was meant to destroy you has in fact empowered you, elevated you, and positioned you for the exact season that you are entering. The enemy, who sought to discourage you, to convince you of your weakness, to make you doubt your worth, has already been defeated, for his schemes cannot prevail against the one who walks with you, who fights for you, who never sleeps nor slumbers over your life. And now, as you step forward into new opportunities, new relationships, new doors, and new seasons, you will notice a supernatural alignment that could only come from surviving the very trials that once threatened to overwhelm you. Because the strength gained from surviving storms cannot be replicated by comfort, the wisdom earned through pain cannot be substituted by ease, and the authority established through endurance cannot be challenged by circumstance. And as you embrace this understanding, you will see that the very memories, the very scars, the very moments that once seemed like curses are now transformed into divine markers of victory, proof of growth, and confirmation that your path has been guided, guarded, and designed with precision by God Himself. Child, there may still be moments where the enemy attempts to remind you of your past, to replay the failures, to provoke fear or insecurity, but remember that those attempts now meet a spirit fortified, a heart seasoned, and a mind illuminated with the knowledge that you have already survived, and in this awareness, you will find not only courage but also joy, not only strength but also clarity, not only peace but also prophetic insight into the ways God is now moving in your life, because survival is not the end, it is the gateway to revelation, to empowerment, to influence, and to a testimony that cannot be denied. The trials that once felt unbearable now serve as a platform from which your faith can expand, your voice can inspire, your influence can grow, and your blessings can manifest in ways previously unimaginable. For every obstacle overcome has created a vacuum for divine favor, every betrayal endured has strengthened your discernment, every loss experienced has heightened your appreciation for the provision coming, and every storm faced has cultivated patience, perseverance, and unwavering trust in God's timing. And now, as you reflect on all that you have walked through and all that you have endured, you will see clearly that nothing that tried to destroy you can withstand the power of the Spirit who lives within you, that your testimony will serve as a beacon to others who feel broken, abandoned, or defeated, that your endurance will inspire courage in hearts that have been wounded, and that your very life will now become a living declaration that surviving what was meant to destroy you is the first step toward walking in the fullness of destiny, authority, and divine favor that has been reserved for you. And as you step into this understanding, child, you will feel the Spirit's confirmation, the angelic presence, and the whisper of Jesus reassuring you that every battle, every storm, and every challenge you survived was preparing you for a supernatural elevation, a breakthrough that cannot be hindered, and a testimony that will glorify God in ways both seen and unseen. Because the one who promised to bring you through has done so, and now nothing can reverse the victory that has already been secured, nothing can challenge the authority that has been established in your spirit, and nothing can prevent the unfolding of the abundant life, influence, and divine purpose that awaits you beyond the trials you have already overcome. Beloved child, now comes the moment of revelation, the moment where the journey through trials, pain, fear, and despair culminates in a profound understanding that everything you have survived was not random, was not a mistake, and was never without purpose, for Jesus now whispers to your spirit that the very forces that sought to harm you, to weaken you, and to derail your destiny have been turned into instruments of empowerment, instruments of awakening, and instruments of divine alignment. And as you reflect on every betrayal, every heartbreak, every disappointment, and every obstacle that once seemed insurmountable, you will see clearly that each one was a stepping stone, a piece of a larger divine puzzle, a necessary trial that has prepared you for a season of breakthrough, promotion, and supernatural favor, and the enemy, who believed he could break your spirit, has been rendered powerless because every attack, every scheme, every whisper of fear has been intercepted, overturned, and transformed by the hand of God, so that what was meant to destroy you now serves as a foundation for victory, proof of resilience, and testimony of divine protection. Child, there may still be moments when the shadows of the past attempt to creep into your present, when memories threaten to stir fear, doubt, or regret, yet as you anchor your spirit in the truth of Jesus' whisper, you will recognize that those shadows have no authority, that they are reminders only of what you have already overcome, and that your endurance has activated favor, insight, and spiritual authority that were never possible before your survival, because God's plan was never for you to remain broken, discouraged, or powerless, but for you to rise, to conquer, to inspire, and to live fully in the blessings He has prepared for you. Every tear you shed, every sleepless night, every moment of silent prayer, every trial endured, has contributed to the formation of a spirit that cannot be shaken, a heart that cannot be deceived, and a mind that can discern the unseen. And now, as you walk forward, even if the world does not yet see the victory, even if the people around you remain unaware, heaven is rejoicing, angels are proclaiming your triumph, and your very life becomes a testimony that surviving what was meant to destroy you is the key to unlocking divine purpose, because survival, child, is not simply existing, it is the catalyst for influence, revelation, and transformation, and the same power that carried you through the storms is now releasing into your life doors, opportunities, blessings, and encounters that could not have been accessed without enduring the trials that once seemed unbearable. Know now that the whispers of Jesus are confirmations that your pain has been redeemed, your losses have been converted into gain, and your endurance has set the stage for divine elevation. And as you continue to trust, obey, and walk forward, you will experience moments where the impossible becomes possible, where enemies are confounded, where favor flows abundantly, and where your life, in every sphere, reflects the glory, power, and faithfulness of God, because surviving what was meant to destroy you has made you a living testament to the unstoppable, unshakable, and victorious power of the Spirit, and the enemy, who once sought to intimidate, deceive, or defeat you, now stands powerless as your life radiates triumph, authority, and divine alignment, and this victory will not be partial, temporary, or limited, but full, permanent, and eternal, touching not only your life but the lives of those around you, your family, your community, and all who are watching, because your endurance becomes proof that the plans of heaven cannot be thwarted, that the faithfulness of God is unwavering, and that what was intended to destroy you has now become the very source of your power, your testimony, and your destiny, and as you walk boldly into this next season, anchored in the truth of your survival, you will feel the Spirit confirming, strengthening, and empowering you with every step, reminding you that nothing, no circumstance, no person, and no force can overturn the victory that has already been secured, and that your life, fully aligned with God's purpose, will serve as an eternal reminder that the trials meant to destroy you were in reality the very channels through which your breakthrough, blessing, and glory were delivered, and the whisper that began this journey, the whisper that you have already survived what was meant to destroy you, now resounds as a declaration, a triumph, and a promise. You are unbroken, you are victorious, you are empowered, and you are destined for the fullness of every blessing, favor, and divine purpose that heaven has prepared for you since the foundations of the world.